Welcome to your October 2025 Washington, D.C. housing market update. I'm your guide through the latest trends, numbers, and what they mean for buyers, sellers, and investors in the DMV. This month, we're seeing interest rates lingering near historic highs, home prices in flux, and inventory climbing. What's driving the shift? Stay with me. By minute 3, you'll know whether 2025 is finally the buyer's moment in D.C. Before we dig into DC's local numbers, let's ground ourselves in the national backdrop. According to Redfin economists, mortgage rates are expected to remain elevated, hovering near 7% for the remainder of the year. Redfin local observers in DC have anticipated rates settling between 6% and 7% in 2025. Washington Blade. Those high rates continue to dampen affordability and slow buyer momentum, especially in a market where home values have already softened. Nationwide, existing home sales have shown signs of weakening, and more supply is hitting the market. Redfin. Turning to Washington, D.C. specifically, Zillow's Home Value Index shows the average D.C. home value around $581,500, reflecting a decline of about 3.8% year over year. Meanwhile, Redfin reports the median sale price in D.C. in recent months at approximately $659,000 to $500, up about 4.8% year over year as of August 2025. In mid-2025, one local analysis placed the DC median sale price near $700,000, citing citywide data and variations across property types. What this tells us, DC is seeing mixed signals. Some transactional sales in recent months suggest a resilient upper end of the market, while the underlying average home value has dipped. For perspective, detached homes in DC often fetch well over $1.3 million, while row houses or townhouses tend to cluster around that median, and condos, co-ops hover closer to $500,000. Now let's zero in on the transaction activity. Unfortunately, as of this recording, we lack definitive data for homes sold in DC in September and October 2025 from all major sources like NAR, Realtor.com, or Redfin. However, based on prior patterns, Redfin's most recent public data for Washington, D.C. citywide in August 2025 showed 573 homes sold, up from 535 the prior year. Redfin in the District of Columbia County level data, also for August, median sale price was $659,500, and homes sold were 573, increasing number 7.1% year over year. Redfin, we must keep in mind, the market tends to cool into the fall, so October 2025 may see a drop in volume compared to earlier months or last year's October. If October 2025 volumes are lower than a year ago, that would align with the national trend of sluggish buyer demand under high rates. Let's talk supply, often the hidden driver behind price moves. Redfin's data center confirms they publish new listings, inventory, and median days on market for metro and city regions. Redfin in DC active inventory has been creeping upward in 2025. The Washington Post recently reported a 40% increase in active listings, months of inventory rising from 1.66 to 248, and a softening market temperature. The Washington Post. The increase is partly driven by exodus or relocation by federal workers under recent budget cuts, prompting more sellers to list homes. Axios. The Washington Post. New home or new listing activity tends to slow during fall, but we're still likely to see a higher baseline of supply as sellers test the market. If we could compare October 2025 to October 2024, here's what to watch. Whether the number of homes sold declines due to slower demand, whether the median average sale price slips or stabilizes, particularly for non-luxury segments, whether the rate of price reductions or days on market increases. For example, in August 2025, DC wasn't just seeing more sales. The days on market increased, 66 days versus 50 a year ago, in one Redfin snapshot. Redfin. If October 2025 shows lower sales volume with stable or modest downward pricing, we could fairly say the market is cooling from the pandemic-era highs. So, what does this data suggest for you, whether you're buying, selling, or investing in the DC market? For buyers, you may begin to see more negotiating room, longer times on market, and more choices. but high rates remain a stiff hurdle. Locking in affordability is key. For sellers, pricing accurately will be more important than ever. Overpricing may lead to extended time on market or forced reductions. Luxury and high-end homes may still command strength, but the middle market will likely face pressure. For investors, watch for distressed or motivated sellers, especially among homeowners tied to the federal workforce. Also, rising inventory may layer more options in markets adjacent to DC proper. Across the board, 2025 is shaping up less as a runaway seller's market and more as a testing ground for who has flexibility and who doesn't. Looking ahead, Redfin forecasts a slight dip in US home prices by the end of 2025, with median prices easing about 1% year over year. Redfin in DC, unless rates drop significantly or buyer confidence rebounds, we may see a moderate correction or plateau, particularly outside the high-end or government-subsidized segments. In closing, Washington, D.C.'s October 2025 housing market is pushing into more balanced territory. Prices may not crash, but the loosened grip of hyper-competition is evident. If you'd like a neighborhood-level breakdown, Capitol Hill, Petworth, WDC, etc., or projections by property type, condo, row house, detached, I'd be glad to deliver that next. Just drop me a message. Thank you for watching. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I'll see you next month for the November update.
Your ultimate hub for real estate insights, breaking news, entrepreneurial wisdom, investing strategies, and self-development hacks. If you're ready to expand your mind and stay ahead of the game floor, you're in the right place. Subscribe now. Your future self will thank you.